Hey, what's up? My name is Jose Duncan Jr., and I would like to welcome you to the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 30 of the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in today. I actually can't really believe that I'm saying episode 30. I started the podcast a little under a year ago. I think we're at 11 months. October will be the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. But even after an entire year of recording the podcast and doing this, I still feel like a beginner. And it goes to show that sometimes in life, no matter how long we do something or how much effort we put into something, there's so much we have to learn in the process. There's so much I learned this entire year, almost a year of recording the podcast that I didn't know when I began. And I still feel like a beginner. Every episode feels like the first episode. I still get nervous. I still overthink it. But one thing I do believe in is this idea of being consistent and showing improvement over time. I hope that those of you who've been there from the beginning has seen some improvement in the podcast, and I hope I continue to bring value to your life in different ways, whatever that may be. Today, I want to get right into my points today. I want to get right into what I want to speak about because it's a powerful concept, a powerful word that has had an impact in my life, and it's something that I take with me all the time, and it's like my superpower that I use to achieve my goals, to set new goals, to go after things that I'm after, to make an impact. It really has been an important key aspect in my life, and I don't know where I would be without it. My entire football upbringing up into college and graduating and playing professionally, and now as a trainer and fitness coach, this idea of this word has been something that has truly got me through some of the toughest times. And I think when I'm in those moments, I don't reflect enough to know that it's this that is keeping me steady and persistent. But in my reflection, I realized that this word is very important, and it's something that I harp on with my clients, with family members, and with anyone who's seeking advice or some type of direction on how to get things done, how to achieve goals. And that word is consistency. We all heard of it. We all have heard of consistency. It is the scariest word for a lot of people. I know as a fitness professional, working with tons of clients over the past 2 years, the number one thing that comes up as to why they can't achieve fitness goals, how they struggle nutritionally, motivation, inspiration, is just they not finding ways to cultivate consistency. And it's not always a problem of motivation or inspiration, but instead it's understanding what we are able to be consistent with and what we're not able to be consistent with, and recognizing and identifying that. Because once we acknowledge our strengths and weakness within that department of consistency, then we can decide what it is that we can be consistent with. So today I want to talk about 3 main points that I have used and that I believe help us stay consistent. And like I've been saying the entire time, my perspective is not the right perspective. My perspective is not the way to go, but instead my perspective is my perspective of understanding how to be a better person, a better leader, and how to continuously add value to others' lives by diving into myself, being more self-aware, and using my growth as a way to help a lot of people. So the number one way to stay consistent over time is to have clarity about what it is that you want. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever heard someone say, "What do you want?" You need to be clear about what you want. It's no secret. It's no secret that having clarity about your vision and your goals helps us stay consistent. I can tell you firsthand, I have struggled with knowing what I want. I have struggled deeply with admitting what I want. In my head, I know what I want. I imagine it, I feel it, I have visions of it. But when it's time to tell somebody or put it in words, it has been one of the biggest struggles of my life. So finding clarity came with time, understanding, trial and error, right? And sampling. And this idea of trying things and not being afraid to fail at different things. Easier said than done of not being afraid, but a willingness to try till you get it right is one of the things that has helped me be consistent. Because in that journey of trying things and seeking for clarity, I built up these routines, this hunt like mentality where I'm always knocking on those doors of opportunity. And every time you knock on a door of opportunity, whether it opens or not, there's something that's gained from continuously trying. And this continuously effort with consistency and trying over and over builds up a persistence and a resilient attitude. And over time, if you keep trying, it will provide you with more clarity because you have now eliminated certain things that don't serve you. And hopefully you added things that do serve you. So I think that is the number one way to remain consistent is to seek clarity. So 3 questions you should ask yourself when seeking clarity. What is my vision? What does my vision look like? I'm talking about setting, the people in your life, a routine of yours, financially. What does that vision look like? Understand that. What does that vision look like? And after you understand what that vision looks like, then you can start this process of reverse engineering. That's another question that I want you to start asking yourself. What are the steps underneath this vision that are most important for me to attend to, right? And once we get that point, we know the game plan. We may need some help getting the game plan down, so I understand that can be a struggle, but knowing what the possible steps may be helps you make it simple. If you ever notice how a lot of people have courses online or tutorials or free videos on how to do something, they take this big central idea that seems difficult in nature and they reverse engineer it down to the most simplest form and they tell you where to start. It's no secret that that method of starting small and building momentum as you educate yourself and as you go along the process builds consistency, because sometimes there are things that you need to learn at the simplest form that you'll need when you get to more of the complex problems and things like that. So the number 3 question I want you to ask yourself when finding clarity is, who can I ask for help? Where can I get my help from? What are my resources? What's available to me? And I think that's one of the toughest things to do when we're trying to be consistent, is that we think it's a solo journey. We think it's something we do ourselves. And while I'm all about personal growth and self-sufficiency, the biggest thing I've learned is that there are people who are better at things than we are. And we must be able to step out of that DIY mentality of doing it ourselves and ask for help. I mean, Google is a huge search engine. I'm not afraid to type into Google my questions. I'm knocking on that door of opportunity, and it's presenting me with more problems. And those problems present me with harder questions. And then I go look up those questions. I'm looking for answers. So understand what your resources are, understand how to use your resources, and don't be afraid to have that courage to ask for help when seeking for that clarity. So my number 2 way to remain consistent is knowing that not everything requires your consistency. And this idea of being reasonable with yourself, being reasonable with what it is that you want. Everything requires consistency that you want. Let me not sidetrack or get you off track. Everything requires consistency that you want, but not everything in your life requires consistency, if you understand what I'm saying. So it all starts with self-awareness. In that self-awareness, you will understand what it is that I can be consistent with. You're pretty much asking yourself, what am I good at? What am I innately good at? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I thrive on? How do I find my motivation? What is it that gets me inspired? What can I already use within myself to start this journey of consistency? Self-awareness is the key that unlocks a lot of doors. In my book that's coming out this fall, I have an entire section. The first section of my book is called self-awareness. It's been the absolute most important part of my journey, and that is a continuously important aspect of my growth, of my development. So you may be asking, Jose, how do I know what to be consistent with? How do I pick and choose in my life the things that I can be consistent with? The answer is not simple, but the answer is simple, right? Like most things. But the first thing I can think of when I'm asked that question is prioritization. A lot of psychologists, a lot of personal growth enthusiasts, a lot of people in the mental health space understand that this idea of prioritizing and listing or having things that are very important to us higher on our priority list and going down from there to things that are less important in retrospect. So prioritization, what it is that's most important to you. For me personally, health and wellness and fitness is number one priority for me. Before anything else, my health is my number one priority. And while sometimes I'm not great at it, I understand that it is definitely something that's very essential for my well-being. So if life presents me with adversity, a lot of struggle, or a change of plans, or a lot of things I wasn't expecting, I understand that don't matter where I am or where I'm at, health and wellness is a priority. It carries everywhere. I take it everywhere. It's not a switch I turn off and on because it's my priority. So how can I find things within my priority to be consistent with? Well, I can exercise often. I can be more attentive to my nutritional habits. I can find ways to incorporate fitness in my routine. I can make sure I know where the gyms are, the trails are, the parks are. Everything around this idea of health and wellness, I can create consistent habits in. I decide what is it I need to adapt as a routine to create consistency. And I do those things, and I try those things. And some things don't work. I don't try it anymore. Some things that work, I kind of get a grasp of that. So when I prioritize, I find that a lot of good things come out of that, and mostly those good things are good habits developed over time. We must make things become automated. Things you do automatically, almost without thinking, right? This idea that we can take actions and attend to our habits and to do some of these things very fluidly without too much thought, without too much deliberate practice, because we've consistently practiced a few things and now we're very automated with it. Our body has become adapted to this type of lifestyle. You know, those people who can wake up without an alarm clock because now they've gotten up at a certain time for so long. Now it's almost automatic for their bodies to wake up at a certain time. That's consistency. Cooking, knowing that certain things go into a dish, or how to cook a dish, or what to do, or what time to put a dish for. After a while of cooking for so long, that also becomes automated. And anything in your life that you want to really become really good at almost should become automated in a way. Doesn't mean it won't require deliberate, consistent practice along the way as you build up to that automation. But you understand that in that vision, you want to have that as something you automatically do with very little thought. So the things that you are thinking about, things you are trying to be deliberate on, are new things that you want to add to your automated list and things like that. So I hope you understand this idea of of deciding what it is that you want to be automatic, and then building that up there to be consistent with. And the last way to identify what it is that you need to be consistent with is to practice patience. There's no other better way to find out what you need to be consistent with than trial and error. I don't know how to tell you to decide something that you can add to your routine or a habit you can practice and implement in your life without telling you to try everything. Try things that may interest you. Try things that may align with what you want. Try things that serve you, and identify how you feel about it. What happens about it? What events in your life change? What's different? You have to identify these things, and from there reverse engineer it to decide that if it's working or not. So this idea of trial and error is very, very much a key component to deciding what to be consistent with. So I want you to remember these two questions always. What throws you off? What keeps you on? Those are two questions that will always help you when deciding what to be consistent with. I'll repeat those. What throws you off and what keeps you on? And when you can ask yourself those two questions, you can get a lot of things done, and you can be clear and identify what those things are that you can be consistent and resilient with. So the final step in the 3-step process of staying consistent is systems. Building a system that is made to keep you consistent. Me and my best friend Abdul, we were talking about it. We were talking about the transition from college and playing football into real life, and how a lot of things in life seem a bit harder or a bit tougher or very different. And he's been feeling overwhelmed with feeling like he's not doing enough, or he's busy, he's productive, but he doesn't feel fulfilled by those things. And I was pretty much talking to him about football. And the beautiful thing about playing organized sports, that I've harped on this before, is that you are put into a system that is made for you to become a better football player, a system that is made for you to be a better team player, a system that is made for you to play at a high level. And we're put into these systems that are built by these organizations, these coaches, by the staffs. And we are asked to go into this system and to just trust it, trust the process, right? We are asked to go into these systems and develop ourselves within it. We asked to go into these systems and add value, to become better teammates, to academically perform. And we have these systems that we carry with us through Pee Wee football, high school football, college football, and a lot of my friends' professional football. The systems don't change. The core of what they do don't change. The settings may change, the talent level may change, the experience may change, but the core foundation of what they're doing doesn't change. So those are almost most players about 15 to 16 years of doing something consistently within a system. And that's exactly how I approach my life. And I want to share some of that with you right now. We must build a system that works, a system that has things in place that helps us be consistent. And we must also address possible malfunctions in that system. Any good system comes with a few errors that are going to need to be fixed over time. I never heard of a perfect system. Maybe probably a lot of perfectionists or engineers, they create a very functioning, high-level functioning system, but there are still tweaks that need to be made. There is still maintenance to this system. There are still people that are in place to help this system perform better. So whatever that system is like for you, we're talking about a daily system, a weekly system, a monthly system. And I wouldn't push too much into an annual system, a yearly system, because that's a lot of months, that's a lot of time. And to build a system on a yearly aspect at an individual level can be very difficult and unsettling. So I would suggest that you start with a daily system. And while a lot of things can change in a day, usually we can get a good idea of what our day should be like and build a system from a morning routine to an afternoon routine, to a nighttime routine. What are we generally eating? What do we generally listen to? What are our general day look like? Who are we generally interacting with, if anyone at all? Where are we generally going? Right? Understanding where you're going to be, how you're going to be there, and what's important when you're there, and starting to implement people, get acquainted, familiar with people in those settings, or get familiar with things that you'll be using, understand what resources are in that system, and after a while of trying something consistently, you are now in a system that you've created. And sometimes you don't even need to be the one to create the system. Sometimes you need to move into a system that operates well for you. And that was the hardest part about going into this quarantine for me, is that I'm so used to having a system to perform in. And when I was removed from that system, essentially removed from the gym and fitness facility, I had to create my own system privately. And it was the biggest struggle I experienced. But after a while, I created this system where I'm training 3 clients in the morning. I have a break. I go attend to some of my nutritional stuff. I go cook, read if I have to, do some meditation, come back in the afternoon, train another client, work on my book, things like that. So after a while, I built a system that was functioning very well. And there were times I needed some maintenance, times I needed some help, times I needed to reach out to some of my resources to keep me aligned. And that's exactly what we need to do as individuals. Build a system. I don't know what that system is like for you, but I know you need to build it. I know you need to try new habits out. I know you need to have clarity. I know you need to decide what you need to be consistent with. And be patient in that system. No system is perfect. Don't be afraid to be adjustable. There's a lot of things in a daily and weekly schedule that you're going to need to adjust. Honestly, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you won't need to adjust or you won't need to pivot sometimes. You're going to need to adjust. And if you haven't listened to my episode on adjusting to change and being light on your feet, I urge you to go listen to that episode, because I gave you some really good insight to how to adjust accordingly when things that you don't really plan for. So you're going to need to adjust no matter if the system is deemed perfect or not. So remain flexible. And the last thing I want to talk about is keeping the main thing the main thing. Those are wise words from my mentor, Justin Sua. He always talks about it on his podcast, to keep the main thing the main thing. And it's something that has really resonated with me over time, because we need to understand that this idea of being elite multitaskers is not entirely effective. I had arguments with my girlfriend about not being able to multitask effectively. She believes that she's a great multitasker. I'm like, there is no such thing as really multitasking. How can you put all your effort into 2 different tasks at the same time? It's not a thing. It's not effective. So we got to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing may change daily. The main thing may change weekly. But whatever that priority is around the main thing must stay consistent. We got to understand that. So if your main thing is you want to lose weight and get in the shape, that's your main thing. You don't have to make it a whole grandiose situation. I just want to lose weight and get in shape. And once you acknowledge what the main thing is, then it's time to reverse engineer. It's time to reverse engineer to address what you're eating, what you're doing, what your days look like, how much calories are you burning, what can you get in, who can you ask for help. It's so many questions that come up when you have clarity. So keep the main thing the main thing. If your main thing is you want to start a podcast, right? What it is that you need to start a podcast with, what tools you need, what resources you need. There are dozens of videos and information out there how to start a podcast, but that has to be your main thing. You can't say I want to start a podcast and do X, Y, Z at the same exact time. It won't work. And I've tried this trial and error, try to do too much at one time, and I realized that I never get anything done effectively. So while I can have multiple priorities and tend to them in the similar time frame, the main thing has to get a lot of my attention. So when we're building a system, we have to know what are the main essential functions of that system and do those things consistently over and over and over again. So just to recap, the top 3 things to help you stay consistent. Clarity about what you want. Understanding that not everything requires consistency, and to be reasonable about yourself and what you're able to be consistent with, right? I know that was a lengthy title, but the whole idea of the second point is to practice self-awareness. What is it that you can do consistently and what it is that you may not be able to do consistently, right? Acknowledge those things. And number 3 in that process is to build a system of habits, routines, and people and other external resources that can help you essentially keep the main thing. So brick by brick, we're building this thing. Brick by brick, consistency can be a very essential part of your life, and I hope that it is. And I hope that you understand that there is patience that needs to be implemented when we're trying to be consistent. There's nothing that's done without patience. So you have to have the long-term vision of what you want. You have to have the long-term vision of who you want to be. See that person, feel that person, smell that person, and allow yourself to become that person. But start with the most simplest way to build momentum to get that process rolling. So there it is, guys. Didn't want to go too much into it. I'll try to keep it short, but usually that's not the most effective way for me. But I'm glad you guys are able to take something out of this episode if you can. So thank you for tuning in to another week of the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. I hope I brought some value, and I encourage you to share this with your friends and family and continue to leave reviews. It really helps the podcast grow, and I appreciate you guys very much. We're closing in on the end of the summer, so I encourage you to get outside, get some nature, get one with yourself, go for walks, experience outside, feel it, let the sun hit you, and just find things in your life that you truly can be consistent with and to become the best version of yourself using consistency. So, like always, guys, positivity is contagious and attitude is truly everything. Thank you. Talk to you guys next week.